ever wondered why two people can chant the same mantra, yet one person only moves their lips while the other becomes calmer, clearer, and somehow more alive? Have you ever felt a quiet suspicion that the real power is not in the syllables themselves, but in the kind of mind that is holding those syllables? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to take a story that sounds unbelievable at first and place it back into a framework that actually makes it useful. We are not here to chase weird miracles for entertainment. We are here to understand what the story is trying to teach about awakening, wisdom, karma, practice, and destiny. Here are the two ideas I want you to keep in your heart from the very beginning. The first is that a mantra is not a trick. It is not a password. It is not a shortcut to control the world. A mantra becomes powerful when it becomes a training ground for the mind, especially the mind of compassion and steadiness. The second is that what people call miraculous is often a sign of deep causes that have been cultivated for a long time. When a person reigns one path with single-minded devotion, ethical stability, and genuine compassion, the results can look strange to people who only try for a day, then quit, then switch, then chase the next shiny thing. Now let me tell you the story, but I will tell it in a way that does not turn your mind into superstition. I will tell it in a way that returns you to the only place where real transformation happens, your own heart. Right now, the story takes place in a time when life was simpler in some ways and harder in others. In rural communities, there were not many resources. Medical help could be far away. People were often poor. When a child got sick, the fear in a parent's chest could feel like a wildfire. They would look for help wherever help could be found. Sometimes that help came from a doctor, sometimes from a neighbor with experience, sometimes from a temple, sometimes from a monk who had a reputation for compassion and steady practice. In those days, there was an elderly monk people spoke about. They did not remember him because he was famous or because he advertised himself. They remembered him because in moments of panic he could calm the room. He could calm the parents. He could calm the child. He could bring people back from the edge of helplessness. His reputation was connected to the Great Compassion mantra. People would come asking for what they called Great Compassion water. Water dedicated through chanting and offered with a compassionate intention. And then the stories start sounding unbelievable. Some said the water became warm. Some said it steamed. Some said in a dark room the water seemed to glow and light up the space. Some said a child calmed down quickly after taking a few spoonfuls. If you hear this and your mind immediately argues, that is understandable. Modern people have been trained to fear being fooled. But even if you do not take every detail literally, there is still a deep teaching hiding underneath. And it is a teaching that can change your daily life in a practical way. Before we go deeper, I need to say something clearly and responsibly. In real life, if a child is seriously ill, urgent medical care is always the right choice. Spiritual practice can support the heart. It can support steadiness. It can support hope and resilience, but it should not replace necessary medical help. Keep that clear in your mind as we continue. Because the point of this story is not to reject medicine. The point is to understand what compassion and concentration can do to the human mind and the human field of suffering, and how that changes karma and destiny. So what is the real question here? The real question is not whether water can glow. The real question is what kind of person becomes so steady, so compassionate, so focused, that simply being near them makes fear loosen its grip. Because fear is contagious. Panic is contagious. But calm is also contagious. Compassion is contagious. When someone has trained the mind deeply, they can bring a whole room out of chaos. And a room pulled out of chaos can become a room where better choices are made. Better choices are karma. Better karma changes outcomes. Outcomes change destiny. Let us slow down and look closely at what happens in a moment like this. A family arrives carrying a sick child. Their voices are trembling. Their breathing is tight. Their mind is racing with worst-case pictures. They are not just afraid of sickness. They are afraid of loss. They are afraid of helplessness. They are afraid of a world that does not guarantee safety. When a human being is in that state, the body changes. The nervous system is flooded. The breath becomes shallow. The muscles tense. The mind narrows. Even the way you hold the child becomes desperate. The whole environment becomes a storm. Now imagine someone who was trained for years. Someone who does not feed the storm. Someone who does not join the panic. Someone whose heart is centered on compassion rather than on performance. And whose mind is centered on one practice rather than scattered across 100 cravings. When that person looks at the parents feel seen. When that person speaks slowly, the parents breathe. When that person begins chanting with stability, the room receives a rhythm. And rhythm is a powerful medicine for a human nervous system. This is not mystical. This is cause and effect. When the breath steadies, the body can shift. When the body shifts, the mind can open. When the mind opens, the person can stop making frantic, harmful choices. That alone can change the direction of a crisis. So when people say the water became warm, I want you to consider a deeper meaning. Warmth is not only temperature. Warmth is a quality of mind. A warm mind is a compassionate mind. A warm mind is a mind that does not abandon suffering. A warm mind softens the hardness of fear. A warm mind can reduce the inner violence that panic creates. Now what about the claim that the water glowed and lit the room? You can interpret that in many ways. You can treat it as a symbolic description of how the room felt when calm arrived. You can treat it as a story passed from mouth to mouth that grew brighter as it traveled. Or you can hold it as a mystery without turning it into a circus. But whichever perspective you take, do not miss the most important part. The story is pointing at inner light, not outer spectacle. When a mind becomes stable in compassion, the eyes look different, the voice sounds different, the whole being feels different. People often describe it as light because that is how it feels. It feels like clarity. It feels like safety. It feels like the heart has space again. When someone has lived in mental darkness for a long time, even a small lamp feels like sunrise. This is why the heart of the story is not about showy power. The heart of the story is about training a mind until compassion becomes like breathing, and steadiness becomes like the ground under your feet. Now the story becomes even more valuable when you ask a sharper question. Why does one person chant and feel nothing, while another person chants and becomes more peaceful, more clear, and more beneficial to others? The answer is not that one person has better pronunciation. The answer is training. Many people treat mantra practice like a transaction. They think, I will repeat this sound, and then I will receive what I want. Money, health, approval, control. And when they do not get what they want quickly, they abandon the practice and chase another method. Their mind is like a person running around a market grabbing random objects, never learning how to cook, then complaining that nothing tastes like food. In Buddhist practice, the real strength is one path deeply cultivated. Single-minded devotion does not mean fanaticism. It means the mind stops being scattered. It means you stopped reading the spiritual path like a shopping mall. You stop switching every time you feel discomfort. You stop chasing novelty. You stop using practice to control outcomes. Instead, you use practice to transform the causes inside you. This is a huge shift, because when your practice is about transforming causes, you are working directly with karma, and karma is the engine of destiny. So what are the causes? If you chant with greed, you strengthen greed. If you chant with anger, you strengthen anger. If you chant with fear and desperation, you strengthen fear and desperation. The mantra does not magically erase your mental state. Your mental state is the soil the mantra is planted in. But if you chant with compassion, you strengthen compassion. If you chant with humility, you strengthen humility. If you chant with steadiness, you strengthen steadiness. Over time, the soil becomes rich. In rich soil, the seeds grow. This is why the old teachers say, Do not ask whether the mantra is powerful. Ask whether your mind is becoming powerful in the right way. Powerful not as dominance, but as clarity, kindness, and non-reactivity. Now let us return to the elderly monk in the story. What kind of life does a person live if their chanting becomes that steady? They live simply. They do not chase fame. They do not chase profit. They do not chase constant stimulation. They protect their moral energy. They protect their speech. They do not indulge in endless conflict. They keep returning to the same vow. And their vow is not, may I control the world. Their vow is, may I reduce suffering. May I not harm. May I become an instrument of compassion. This is Bodhisattva direction. And direction matters. A person moving in that direction for years becomes someone whose presence itself is practice. Now I want to speak to you personally here, because this is where the story stops being about an old monk and becomes about your daily life. Most of us are not living in temples. We are living in phones, deadlines, family responsibilities, and mental noise. Many of you try to practice and feel frustrated. You sit down to chant, and the mind rebels. It jumps. It argues. It plans. It complains. It says this is boring. It says this is pointless. It says I am not good at this. It says I should be doing something else. That restlessness is not proof you cannot practice. It is proof you need practice. Because the restless mind is exactly what creates unnecessary suffering in daily life. The restless mind sends the harsh text. The restless mind spends money it does not need to spend. The restless mind snaps at a child. The restless mind drives too fast. The restless mind overeats. The restless mind cannot sleep. The restless mind creates problems and then calls them fate. So when you sit down to chant and you see restlessness, do not feel ashamed. You are seeing the engine of karma in real time. That is already awakening. Now what do you do with it? You do what the story is teaching. You stop chasing spectacle. You train the mind to return. Return to the sound. Return to the breath. Return to the vow. Return to compassion. Not once, again and again. And here is the part most people resist. Consistency over intensity. Many people want to practice intensely for 2 days, then stop for 2 weeks, then return when they feel scared again. That creates a mind that associates practice with emergency only. A mind that practices only in panic never becomes steady. It becomes superstitious and desperate. But a mind that practices a little each day becomes stable. Stability is the foundation of wisdom. Wisdom is the foundation of compassion that actually works. This is why the story keeps pointing to single-minded practice. Not to make you rigid, but to make you free. Now I want to talk about Great Compassion Water as a symbol of something even deeper. Because whether or not you believe in any physical change in water, the practice is clearly a practice of dedication. Dedication means you do not practice only for yourself. You practice to benefit others. You take the goodness you cultivate and you direct it outward. You do not hold it like a private possession. You share it. This is one of the most powerful ways to purify karma because it attacks the root of so much suffering. Self-centeredness. When you practice only to get what you want, the ego stays strong. When you practice to reduce suffering for others, the ego begins to soften. And when ego softens, many kinds of inner torment weaken. You become less offended, less defensive, less addicted to being right, less hungry for applause. That is real liberation. So in the story, the water is not just a ritual object. It is the visible form of an invisible dedication. It is a way of saying, I am not chanting to decorate myself. I am chanting to help. And a person who trains that motivation day after day becomes someone whose life is aligned. Aligned mind creates aligned karma. Aligned karma creates a different destiny. Now let me address a common misunderstanding that creates a lot of confusion. Some people hear about mantra practice and think it is a way to get supernatural power. They want to prove something. They want to impress others. They want to show that spirituality gives them special abilities. This is a dangerous direction. In the story, the elderly monk was remembered not because he showed off, but because he served. He did not use the practice to inflate himself. He used the practice to relieve fear and suffering. That is the only safe direction. If you chase power, you feed pride. Pride creates heavy karma. Pride attracts conflict. Pride leaks merit. Pride eventually collapses into humiliation or bitterness. But if you cultivate compassion, you build merit. Merit supports your practice. Practice supports your wisdom. Wisdom supports your compassion. That circle becomes your path. Now I want to make the teaching even more practical by showing you how the real miracle happens inside an ordinary person. Many people define miracle as something external, like sudden wealth, sudden fame, a perfect outcome. But the Buddha pointed to a different kind of miracle. The miracle is the mind that stops creating suffering. Think about your own life. How many of your worst problems were not created by a hurricane or an earthquake, but by a moment when you reacted blindly? A harsh sentence, a selfish decision, a lie, a pattern of avoidance, an addiction, a refusal to apologize, a refusal to forgive. These are the moments that create destiny. So if mantra practice helps you become the kind of person who pauses before speaking, who softens before attacking, who breathes before panicking, then your destiny changes. And here is the key. This change is completely replicable. You do not need a miracle story. You need training. A person who practices a compassion mantra steadily begins to notice their own anger sooner. They begin to notice their own greed sooner. They begin to notice their own fear sooner. They begin to recognize the exact moment when the old habit is about to drive the car. Then, they have a choice. And choice is freedom. Most people think freedom is doing whatever you want. Buddhism says freedom is not being forced by your impulses. Freedom is not being dragged by habit. So the mantra becomes a rope you can grab when the mind tries to run. It becomes a rhythm that pulls you out of the storm. Over time, the storm is still there sometimes, but it is less violent. It passes faster. The relationships suffer less damage. The body suffers less stress. The mind suffers less guilt. This is not small. This is destiny. Now let us talk about something the story mentioned that is extremely important. Sometimes, when you begin practicing sincerely, you feel worse at first. You become more irritable. You notice your greed more. You notice your impatience more. You notice how scattered you are. You notice how harsh you can be inside your own mind. Some people panic and say, "Practice is making me worse." Then they quit. But, in reality, the practice may be revealing what was always there. The light turns on, and you see the mess. That does not mean the mess grew. It means you stop living in the dark. If you stay with the practice gently, without forcing, the mind begins to soften. The mess begins to clear. Not because you are perfect, but because you are awake enough to stop feeding the same poison every day. This is exactly why old teachers emphasize patience, humility, and consistency. Now, I want to bring the focus back to compassion again, because compassion is the heart of this entire story. The great compassion mantra is tied to the vow of the Bodhisattva of compassion, the one who hears the cries of the world. Hearing the cries of the world does not only mean hearing other people's pain. It also means hearing your own pain honestly. Many people avoid their own pain by staying busy, scrolling, joking, consuming, or controlling others. But pain does not disappear by being ignored. It turns into tension, bitterness, and sickness. A compassion practice teaches you to listen without drowning, to listen without judging, to listen without turning the pain into more harm. When you can listen to your own suffering with compassion, you stop needing to dump it on everyone around you. That alone changes your relationships. That alone changes your karma. That alone changes your destiny. And once you can listen to your own suffering, You can listen to others without becoming exhausted or cruel. You become someone who can steady a room. You become someone who can bring warmth to a cold moment. That is what people mean when they say the heart becomes bright. Bright does not mean happy all the time. Bright means clear. Bright means not trapped. Bright means not ruled by bitterness. Bright means the mind remembers love even when life is hard. Now I want to offer you a very simple method that matches the spirit of the story without turning your life into something heavy. Start with intention. Before chanting, pause for a moment. Take one breath. Then set a clean intention. Not a desperate bargain. A clean intention. May my mind become less harmful. May my heart become more compassionate. May my speech become gentler. May my actions create less suffering. May I dedicate this practice to the well-being of my family and all beings. Then chant for a short time, even a few minutes, but chant with attention. If the mind drifts, return. Returning is the practice. Do not punish yourself. Just return. After chanting, dedicate whatever goodness arose. Dedication is not fantasy. Dedication is training your mind away from selfishness. It is training the heart to expand. Expanded heart is a strong heart. Now let me connect this to destiny in the most direct way. When you train like this, your mind becomes less reactive. Less reactive mind creates fewer conflicts. Fewer conflicts means fewer enemies. Fewer enemies means fewer obstacles. Fewer obstacles means more energy. More energy supports health and clarity. Health and clarity support better decisions. Better decisions create better karma. Better karma creates better destiny. This chain is simple and real. It does not require anyone to believe that water literally glows. It requires you to believe in cause and effect. And cause and effect is the most practical faith you can have, because you can test it in your own life. Now I want to close the story the way a long video needs to close, with a reflection that lands in your heart, not only in your mind. The reason people are drawn to miracle stories is not because they love fantasy. It is because they are suffering and they want hope. They want a sign that things can change. They want a sign that destiny is not a prison. Buddhism offers that hope in a way that is even stronger than spectacle. It says you can change the causes. You can change the mind. You can change the direction. But you have to stop treating practice like a transaction and start treating it like training. You have to stop chasing the next method every time you feel discomfort and start building steadiness. You have to stop using spiritual words to decorate your ego and start using practice to soften your heart. You have to stop demanding that the world obey you and start transforming the mind that meets the world. If you do this, the heart becomes bright, not because your life becomes perfect, but because your mind becomes capable. Capable of compassion, capable of wisdom, capable of seeing karma before it becomes regret, capable of returning to the path when you slip. And that is the real miracle. Now let me share a final reflection in the way I would speak to you as a channel host. I have met many people who were desperate for external signs. They wanted a lucky break. They wanted proof that practice works. And then, slowly, through steady daily effort, they experienced something far more valuable than a spectacle. They became less angry. They became less fearful. They slept better. They spoke kinder. They stopped destroying their relationships with impulsive words. They started feeling gratitude again. Their life did not become free of storms, but they stopped becoming storms. That is how you know practice is real. So if you are listening right now and part of you is thinking, I want that. I want my heart to be brighter. I want my destiny to feel lighter. Then do not start by chasing someone else's miracle story. Start by creating your own small daily miracle. 10 minutes of steady practice. One clean intention. One act of compassion. One moment of restraint when you could have spoken harshly. One dedication for others. Repeat. This is how karma changes. This is how destiny turns. I want to invite you to share in the comments. Do you believe more in external miracles Or are you longing for an internal transformation that changes how you live every day? Have you ever experienced a moment where a simple practice made your mind calmer and your choices wiser? Share your story. Your honesty might help someone who is quietly suffering and does not know where to begin. If you want more long-form stories and teachings that stay grounded in awakening, wisdom, karma, practice, and destiny, subscribe to the channel. Like the video so it reaches the people who need a steady voice to return to. And keep walking with me, because the next story will move from mantra and compassion into a very practical look at how good fortune is often already on its way, built by small causes you might not even recognize yet.
There are moments when you see something and your heart simply whispers, "This one is meant for me." Bracelet carries more than beads. It carries intention, protection, and quiet strength. Something to guide your thoughts and keep your spirit steady. If you felt that gentle pull toward any of the bracelets shown, the purchase link is waiting in the description, and the full collection is displayed on our channel store. Follow your intuition. It rarely leads you wrong.